In 197.6, America awoke to the shocking news that child star Anissa Jones, the golden-haired angel from Family Affair, was found dead after a night of partying. She had once embodied innocence on screen, but behind that perfect smile hid a storm of pain, fame, and freedom gone too far. What really happened to Hollywood's little darling? The beginning of a star. Long before the flashing lights and the magazine covers, there was a little girl from Indiana named Mary Anissa Jones, to everyone who loved her. She was born on a cold March morning in 1958, her parents' first child, bright-eyed and full of promise. When the family moved to California, they hoped for a fresh start. Instead, it marked the beginning of a storm that would shape Anissa's destiny. Her parents' marriage fell apart soon after the move. The divorce was bitter, dragging through the courts for years, leaving Anissa and her younger brother caught between two worlds. While her father fought for custody, Anissa stayed mostly with her mother, Mary, an ambitious woman who saw in her daughter a spark that could outshine their struggles. At just 4 years old, Anissa was placed in dance classes. She moved with a kind of innocent grace that made people stop and stare. Neighbors encouraged her mother to take her to TV auditions. Soon, Anissa was booking commercials, her smile selling breakfast cereal across America. But what started as innocent fun soon became something else. Agents called, producers noticed, and by the age of 8, Anissa landed the role that would change everything: Buffy Davis, the sweet little girl in CBS's new sitcom Family Affair. The timing was perfect. America in the late 1960s was craving innocence, and Anissa delivered it effortlessly. Her golden pigtails and wide blue eyes made her the nation's darling. Millions tuned in every week just to see her smile. Yet even at that age, Anissa's world was already shifting. Behind the laughter of a hit sitcom was a schedule that would exhaust even an adult. Long hours on set, endless publicity shoots, studio tutors replacing real classrooms. Anissa was growing up in front of cameras, not friends. Still, she shined. Castmates adored her, directors praised her professionalism, and viewers couldn't get enough of Buffy. Dolls, coloring books, lunchboxes, everything with her face sold out in stores. She wasn't just a TV star, she was a brand. Behind those twinkling lights, a question lingered. Could a child truly stay whole under the weight of Hollywood's love? The price of stardom. By the late 1960s, Family Affair had exploded into a national sensation, and Anissa Jones, the adorable Buffy Davis, became a household name. America couldn't get enough of her bright smile and those iconic pigtails. She wasn't just playing a character, she was the symbol of innocence in an age that desperately wanted to believe in it. Every week, millions of families tuned in to see Buffy's world of laughter, love, and lessons learned. But behind the studio lights, the story wasn't nearly as cheerful. The workload was relentless. Anissa was still just a child, yet her days stretched long past sunset. Scripts to memorize, scenes to reshoot, interviews to smile through. It was a job that demanded more than any child should give. She worked nearly year-round, often 6 or 7 days a week, with little time to simply be a kid. The show's success meant endless promotion, photo sessions, and appearances. Even the smallest mistake could mean hours of retakes under hot studio lights. Still, Anissa rarely complained. She did what was asked, smiled on cue, and gave the world the version of Buffy it wanted to see. The more famous she became, the less control she had over her own life. Her image was everywhere, on dolls, coloring books, lunchboxes, even cookbooks. CBS turned her character into a marketing empire. To the world, she was perfect. To Anissa, it began to feel like a cage. On set, her kindness never faded. She was known for her warmth, always making guest stars feel at home, often sharing gifts with her younger brother Paul, who followed her everywhere. But off set, the exhaustion began to show. Long filming hours replaced playtime. Studio tutors replaced classmates, and the pressure to stay perfect never let up. By the time Family Affair reached its 5th season, the sparkle in Anissa's eyes had begun to fade. What had once been a dream now felt like an obligation. She loved acting, but she hated being Buffy. She wanted to grow up, to find her own identity beyond the little girl America adored. Still, she kept smiling for the cameras, never knowing that the show that made her famous would soon end, and with it, the stability her life had depended on. Because when the lights finally dimmed on Family Affair, Anissa would face something far darker than fame: silence. When the lights went out. In 1971, after 5 successful seasons, Family Affair came to an end. For America, it was just the close of another beloved show. But for Anissa Jones, only 12 years old, it was the end of the only world she'd ever known. The cameras stopped rolling, the laughter tracks went silent, and for the first time, she wasn't Buffy Davis. She was just Anissa, and she didn't know who that was anymore. At first, she felt relief. The long days, the constant pressure, the endless eyes watching her, it was all gone. But soon, relief turned into emptiness. The world that had once adored her seemed to move on overnight. Casting directors couldn't see past the image of the little girl with pigtails. To them, she would always be Buffy. Anissa wanted to break free from that image. She dreamed of serious roles, of proving she could be more than a child star. She auditioned for the haunting role of Regan in The Exorcist, a part that could have redefined her career. But the director couldn't imagine the sweet, smiling Anissa in such a dark film. The role went to someone else. Then came Taxi Driver. Martin Scorsese's gritty New York story offered another chance at reinvention. Anissa auditioned for the role of Iris, a complex, broken girl, nothing like Buffy Davis. Yet again, she was turned down. The part went to a rising young actress named Jodie Foster. Rejection after rejection, Anissa began to drift further from the spotlight. The same fame that had once opened every door now locked them all shut. She tried to fit into a normal life, attending school, picking up odd jobs, but it never lasted. The rhythm of Hollywood still echoed in her, even when the world stopped listening. As the years passed, the bright stage lights that once surrounded her had faded to shadows. The applause was gone, replaced by silence and uncertainty. The little girl who once brought joy to millions now struggled to find joy for herself. Fame had given Anissa everything, and then, without warning, it took it all back. The lost years. When the spotlight faded, silence filled Anissa Jones's world, and it was louder than any applause she had ever known. The studios stopped calling, the interviews dried up, and the face that once charmed America began to vanish from the screen. She was only a teenager, but she'd already lived a lifetime in front of cameras. Now, without them, she felt invisible. The world expected her to simply grow up, but how could she? She had never been a normal kid. School felt foreign. Friendships were fleeting. Everyone still called her Buffy. Everywhere she went, people recognized her face but didn't see her. At home, things weren't better. Her parents' long custody battle had left deep scars. By the time her father passed away in 1974, Anissa was just 16 and completely untethered. Her mother, often away and struggling herself, couldn't reach the daughter she once managed so closely. Arguments turned into silence. Days turned into disappearances. Anissa was searching for something: freedom, belonging, maybe just peace. She tried to find it in the company of friends who offered escape from the weight of her past. There were parties, late nights, and a rush to live fast, as if she could outrun the emptiness that fame had left behind. She took on small jobs, tried to start over, but the world of make-believe had taught her little about real life. Every attempt to start fresh ended the same way: confusion, disappointment, and the haunting echo of who she used to be. Still, inside her, that spark remained. The same bright light that once drew millions to their screens. But the industry that had built her up now had no place for her. And the people who had once called her America's sweetheart had moved on to the next young face. By 18, Anissa was old enough to make her own choices and free enough to make the wrong ones. The little girl who once symbolized innocence was now walking the edge between who she had been and who she might become. And in Hollywood, that edge was razor thin. The turning point, 1976. By March of 1976, Anissa Jones turned 18, the age of independence, of new beginnings. For the first time, she was free from guardians, from contracts, from the studio's control. And along with that freedom came something else, money. Nearly $200,000, her earnings from Family Affair, waited in a trust fund, finally hers to claim. It was meant to be her second chance, a bridge to a new life. But for Anissa, it felt more like a doorway to everything she'd been denied. After years of living under other people's rules, she wanted to breathe, to feel alive again, to catch up on the teenage years she'd never had. The parties, the music, the ocean, all of it called to her like freedom wrapped in neon light. Friends described her as radiant, restless, full of life. Yet beneath that spark was something fragile. The spotlight had vanished, but its shadow still followed her. She was trying to fill a silence that fame had left behind, a silence so deep that laughter could only echo inside it. As summer came, Anissa spent more time by the coast. She loved the beach, the sound of waves crashing against the shore, the illusion that everything could be washed clean. To outsiders, she looked carefree, finally living life on her own terms. But to those who knew her best, there was an unease, an invisible weight she couldn't seem to shake. She was young, beautiful, and searching for something she couldn't name. The Hollywood darling who once brought joy to millions now drifted through her days like a star that had burned too brightly, too soon. And then came that final weekend, a trip with friends to the seaside town of Oceanside, California. Laughter, music, the promise of endless summer nights. No one could have known it would be her last. When dawn came, the world that had once adored Anissa Jones would wake to headlines that didn't seem real. Because the girl America had loved was gone, and the question that haunted everyone was why. The morning after. The sun rose quietly over Oceanside that August morning in 1976. The waves rolled in as they always did, steady, calm, unaware that Hollywood had just lost one of its brightest lights. Inside a small California home, a friend went to wake Anissa Jones. But the girl who once made millions smile would never wake again. News traveled fast. By midday, reporters were calling, headlines were forming, and America was in disbelief. Anissa Jones, the beloved Buffy Davis, the little girl with the pigtails and the sweet laugh, was gone at just 18. For fans, it was impossible to understand. For those who knew her, it was heartbreak that words could not hold. Police began piecing together the final hours of her life. The night before had been full of laughter, music, and the carefree spirit of youth. But somewhere between sunset and dawn, that freedom turned fatal. What happened behind those closed doors became the question haunting everyone. From Hollywood insiders to heartbroken fans across the country, the coroner's report stunned investigators. The young actress, who had once stood on stage beside legends, had left the world far too soon. The details were difficult to hear, but one thing was clear. Anissa's final hours reflected the same storm that had followed her since childhood. Too much pressure, too much pain, and too little help. Outside the home, cameras flashed, capturing a scene that felt unreal. Neighbors whispered, strangers gathered. The same media that had once celebrated her rise now documented her fall. Yet amid the chaos, there was still tenderness. Friends spoke of her kindness, her laughter, her love for the sea. Her family chose to honor that part of her, scattering her ashes over the Pacific, the place she'd always felt most free. But even as the waves carried her away, questions remained. Who had failed her? What had really happened in those final moments? And why did fame, once her greatest gift, become the weight that dragged her under? Anissa's story wasn't just another Hollywood tragedy. It was a mirror held up to the dream factory itself. Because behind every shining light, there's a shadow. And for Anissa Jones, that shadow had finally caught up. The Doctor's Secret. As investigators searched through the small oceanside home, one discovery stood out. A plain envelope tucked away among Anissa Jones's belongings. On the front, a name, Dr. Don Carlos Mossos. Inside, handwritten notes listed the type and quantity of a certain prescription. It was a small clue, but one that would send shockwaves through Hollywood. When police traced the name, they uncovered a story as troubling as Anissa's own. Dr. Mossos wasn't just any physician. He was a man known for never saying no. His clinic in Torrance, California, had a reputation. Lines of young people waiting outside, all looking for the same thing, easy prescriptions, quick signatures, no questions asked. Reporters soon descended on the clinic. Cameras rolled as journalists interviewed neighbors who spoke of the doctor's popularity, his constant stream of patients, and the strange hours he kept. Records later revealed that he wrote over 100 prescriptions a day, a staggering number that raised more questions than it answered. The deeper investigators looked, the darker it became. Dr. Mossos, they learned, had been under scrutiny for months. Allegations swirled that he was supplying powerful medications to anyone with $5 and an ID. His office, filled with bright-eyed teenagers and struggling actors, had become a revolving door of desperation. When confronted, the doctor denied wrongdoing. But the evidence was mounting. Within 6 days of Anissa's death, authorities moved in. Dr. Mossos was arrested at his office and charged with multiple counts of illegal prescribing and profiteering from controlled substances. The news broke across national headlines, transforming the tragedy of Anissa Jones into a scandal that rocked Hollywood's medical underworld. But justice would never fully come. As the case gained momentum, Dr. Mossos's health declined rapidly. Just months later, before the trial could begin, he passed away in a Los Angeles hospital. For Anissa's family, it was another wound without closure. They pursued a civil case, seeking accountability, but no verdict could undo what had already been lost. The doctor's death closed the file, but not the questions. Had Anissa been another victim of Hollywood's dark machinery? Or was she simply one of many young stars failed by the system meant to protect them? One thing was certain. Her story had exposed a hidden network, one where fame met exploitation and innocence became a commodity. The trial and the aftermath. The arrest of Dr. Don Carlos Mossos had shaken Hollywood, but his sudden death months later left the story without closure. For Anissa Jones's family, the headlines faded, but the pain didn't. Her mother, Mary, wasn't ready to let the world forget. She wanted answers. She wanted justice. In 1979, 3 years after Anissa's death, the family took their fight to court. It wasn't a criminal case now. There was no one left to stand trial. Instead, it was a civil lawsuit against the late doctor's estate, a desperate attempt to hold someone accountable for what had happened to her daughter. The courtroom was somber, the atmosphere heavy. Reporters filled the seats, ready to capture every word. To them, it was another Hollywood scandal. To Mary Jones, it was her last chance to speak for the little girl whose voice had been silenced. Lawyers presented evidence linking Dr. Mossos to the illegal prescriptions that had flooded Los Angeles's youth culture in the 1970s. Witnesses described long lines outside his clinic, stories that painted a picture of reckless care and greed. But even with the evidence, the verdict felt hollow. After weeks of testimony, the court ruled that the doctor's estate was only partly responsible, 30% liable for Anissa's death. The family received $7,500, a fraction of what they had sought. No one celebrated. There were no cameras flashing, no victory speech. Only a mother standing outside the courthouse, holding a photo of her daughter, wondering if justice had really been served. For Hollywood, the case was a wake-up call. The tragic fall of its once sweetest child star forced the industry to confront the darker truths it had long ignored. The pressure, the exploitation, and the forgotten lives left behind when the cameras stopped rolling. But for Mary Jones, the verdict didn't bring peace. It was just another reminder that fame had taken everything and returned almost nothing. And somewhere in the endless hum of Los Angeles, Anissa's name became more than a memory. It became a warning. A mother's grief. For most people, time softens pain. But for Mary Jones, time only made the silence louder. After the verdict, the cameras disappeared. The reporters moved on, and the world returned to its usual rhythm. Yet inside her small California home, the echoes of laughter and the memory of her daughter's smile refused to fade. She had lost more than a child. She had lost the light that once filled every corner of her life. There were moments when she still expected to hear Anissa's voice calling from the next room, the sound of her giggle from the television. But the screens were dark now. The world that had once adored her daughter had moved on to newer faces, newer stories. Mary kept every photograph, every magazine clipping, every fan letter that had arrived during Family Affair's golden years. To outsiders, they were relics of fame. To her, they were all that was left of Anissa's presence. She replayed those memories endlessly. Anissa's first audition, her first day on set, the way she used to clutch her brother Paul's hand backstage. Mary wondered if she could have done something differently, been stricter, gentler, closer. Every mother's question after loss became her endless refrain. What if? Friends said she aged quickly after Anissa's passing. The once determined stage mother became quiet, withdrawn. The legal battles, the interviews, the constant reminders had drained what little strength she had left. But behind that quiet exterior, her grief hardened into something else, a determination that her daughter's story would not be forgotten. Mary spoke at community meetings, warning other parents about the hidden costs of child stardom. She urged families to protect their children from the pressures of fame, from the illusion that Hollywood success meant happiness. It was her way of turning sorrow into purpose. Yet even as she found her voice again, she could never escape the shadow of what had been lost. Every anniversary, every headline that mentioned Anissa's name brought the ache rushing back. She had once watched her daughter light up America's screens. Now, she lived in a world without that light, just the flicker of memories that refused to die. And deep down, Mary knew that her story with Anissa wasn't truly over. Another heartbreak was waiting on the horizon, one that would shatter her all over again. The brothers' fate. 8 years had passed since Anissa's death, and though the world had long forgotten, her family never could. The house still carried her presence, the framed photos, the awards, the faint scent of her old perfume. But for Paul Jones, Anissa's younger brother, those memories were both a comfort and a curse. Paul had adored his sister. As children, they were inseparable, holding hands on set, whispering jokes between takes, chasing each other through the studio halls. When Anissa received gifts from fans, she always made sure he got one too. To Paul, she wasn't a star. She was simply his big sister, the one person who made him feel safe. But when she was gone, that safety vanished too. He was just 14 when he lost her, and nothing ever felt whole again. Growing up under the shadow of fame he didn't choose, Paul struggled to find his own place in the world. He carried the weight of her memory like an invisible anchor, always comparing himself to the sister who once belonged to everyone. As the years went on, the pain deepened. Friends came and went. Jobs never lasted. And though he rarely spoke about it, those who knew him said he carried a sadness that never left his eyes. In March of 1984, just days after what would have been Anissa's 26th birthday, tragedy struck again. Paul was gone. Another young life lost too soon. Another chapter closed in the Jones family's story. For Mary, it was a heartbreak beyond words. She had already buried one child. Now she faced the impossible task of saying goodbye again. The world barely noticed this time. No headlines, no flashbulbs, no crowd of mourners. But in the quiet of her home, Mary grieved both her children. The laughter that had once filled those rooms, now replaced by silence. 2 children, both gone before their time. 2 lights extinguished from the same family that once glowed with promise. And yet, in the stillness, their bond seemed unbroken. Mary often said she liked to think of Anissa and Paul together again, somewhere beyond the reach of pain, running down the golden halls of childhood once more. The cast's curse. The laughter that once echoed through the set of Family Affair had long faded, replaced by whispers of something darker, a pattern that no one wanted to name, but everyone felt. To millions of viewers, the show was a symbol of warmth and innocence. Yet behind that glossy image, tragedy seemed to follow its stars long after the cameras stopped rolling. Just a year after Anissa's death in 1977, the cast was struck again. Sebastian Cabot, the gentle British actor who played the wise and loving Uncle Bill, suffered a fatal stroke at just 59. He had been a mentor to Anissa, always offering kindness between takes, often calling her his little sunshine. His passing felt like the end of an era, the family on screen slowly disappearing one by one. 2 decades later, the heartbreak deepened. In 1997, Brian Keith, who had portrayed the gruff but caring father figure, took his own life after a long battle with illness and despair. Fans were stunned. For those who had grown up watching Family Affair, it was another painful reminder that even the happiest television families could not escape real-life sorrow. To outsiders, it began to look like a curse, a strange, silent thread of tragedy connecting the show's cast members. But to those who had known them, it was simpler and sadder. They were all human beings who had carried the weight of fame, loss, and the passage of time. Hollywood has always had a way of polishing stories until they sparkle, of turning pain into nostalgia. Yet the story of Family Affair remains haunting because it reveals what the spotlight often hides, the loneliness that lingers when the applause ends. For viewers, reruns of the show still bring comfort. Buffy and Jody's laughter, Uncle Bill's wisdom, Mrs. Beasley's quiet smile. But for those who lived it, those memories carry a bittersweet truth. The magic they created on screen came at a price none of them could have imagined. Even now, when old episodes play on television, you can almost feel it, that strange mix of joy and sadness. A reminder that every family, real or fictional, holds its share of light and shadow. The media storm. In the years that followed, Anissa Jones's story refused to fade away. Every few years, her name would resurface, on magazine covers, in late-night talk shows, in retrospectives about Hollywood's lost children. Each retelling came with the same haunting image. The little blonde girl with pigtails and a smile that had once lit up America's living rooms. The media couldn't let her go. She became a symbol of innocence lost, of the dangers of fame, of what happens when childhood and stardom collide. Documentaries, tabloids, and talk shows picked apart her story, searching for answers the world would never truly find. Some blamed Hollywood. Others blamed her family. But beneath all the noise was a deeper truth. No one had ever really protected her. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, Hollywood faced a reckoning. Studios began facing scrutiny for how they treated young performers. The endless workdays, the pressure to stay perfect, the lack of real guidance once the lights dimmed. Anissa's name was often mentioned as a cautionary tale in these discussions. She was no longer just a child star. She was a warning, a reminder that fame could destroy as easily as it could create. Yet even amid the criticism, there was nostalgia. Reruns of Family Affair returned to television, and a new generation of viewers discovered Buffy Davis. Letters poured into fan clubs. Some wrote to say she had inspired them. Others confessed they had grown up with her and still missed her. For all the tragedy that surrounded her story, Anissa Jones had become eternal, a face frozen in time. But for her family, the media frenzy was bittersweet. Every headline felt like reopening an old wound. Every photo brought back the laughter, the love, and the unbearable loss. The world saw a story. They lived the pain. And as cameras flashed and voices debated who was to blame, the truth quietly lingered beneath it all. Hollywood didn't just lose a star. It lost a child. Hollywood's reflection, the legacy of Anissa Jones. Years after Anissa Jones's passing, Hollywood began to change, slowly, quietly, almost reluctantly. Her name, once whispered in sorrow, started appearing in conversations about reform. Casting agents, producers, and unions began asking questions that had long been ignored. How do we protect child actors? Who watches over them when the cameras stop rolling? The answers weren't simple. But Anissa's story had become impossible to forget. It was more than a tragedy. It was a mirror reflecting everything Hollywood wanted to hide: the pressure, the isolation, the fragile cost of fame. Industry veterans spoke of her in panels and interviews, calling her story a warning from the golden age. Behind every glamorous success, they said, there is a child who deserves a childhood. New rules were proposed. Child labor laws in entertainment grew stricter. Welfare workers and on-set tutors became mandatory. Little by little, the system tried to ensure that no one else would slip through the cracks the way Anissa did. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Outside the studios, Anissa's memory lived on in gentler ways. Fans continued to write letters to her family, decades after her passing. Some said they grew up watching Family Affair and felt like they knew her. Others wrote simply to say thank you for the laughter, for the light, for reminding them of innocence in a changing world. Her mother, Mary, kept those letters in a box by the window. On quiet afternoons, she would open them, reading each word as if her daughter were still here, still loved by millions she never met. Though Mary's life had been marked by loss, she took comfort in knowing Anissa's story had touched something larger than pain. It had changed the way people looked at fame, childhood, and compassion. As the decades passed, Family Affair remained a piece of American nostalgia. Reruns played on Sunday mornings, bringing back the laughter of a simpler time. Children who once watched the show had grown up, now introducing it to their own families. And somewhere in those old black and white frames, Anissa's smile still shone, bright, timeless, untouched by the years. Today, her legacy endures not in scandal, but in remembrance. She reminds us that behind every star is a human being, fragile, hopeful, searching for love and meaning just like anyone else. Anissa Jones was more than a child star. She was a dreamer who gave her light to the world, long before the world was ready to protect it. And though the curtain fell too soon, her story continues to echo. A quiet voice reminding Hollywood and all of us that even the smallest light can change the darkness.